first we have Robin Sakovich, who is a theme park employee who says she had to live with her mother when she moved here from Michigan because she couldn't afford to live alone. So Robin, thank you so much for being here. And then we have Ethan Hooper. Ethan is an elementary school teacher and says he sees how affordable housing issues affects his students. Thank you, Ethan. And Frank Torres, who lives in Altamont Springs and says he has been priced out from buying a home. A lot of people are in that same situation. We have Bathsheba Collingwood, who is a single mother with 3 kids and says she was evicted from her apartment during the pandemic. Thank you so much for being here. And we have Nadia Jacino, who says she lives in an apartment in the Four Corners area. I know you have a son in college, and you also say that sometimes you have to struggle to pay the rent with everything that's going on. And then we have Ryan Mullins, who rents a townhome, and I know you just saw a dramatic increase in the rent. And Ryan also says that he wants to buy a home, but he is worried he'll be priced out. So Robin, why don't we start with you? First of all, thank you for being here, and tell us about why you moved here from Michigan in the first place.
I lost my job in Michigan, and I needed to move pretty quickly. My lease was up where I was living, and the only way I had to be able to afford to live was to move down here and live with my mother. My mother, 69 years old at the time, and I knew she wasn't getting any younger, so it was time for me to come down here and be with family. So.
And you said you made the decision to move pretty quickly.
Yes.
How long did you look for an apartment?
I actually did not. I looked before I moved down here because I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to move or not. But once I was stable enough to be able to afford a place, when I moved down here, that's when I started looking. I looked for about 3 months and I found a place. I had to wait a year and a half on a wait list to get into the apartment that I'm in now. It's an income restricted apartment complex.
And tell people what that means.
That means you cannot make above a certain amount of money. They have a cap where you can't make above this certain amount of money to live there. So they check all your bank statements and your 1040s and all that to make sure that you're not making above the amount of.
So it's designed for people who only make a certain amount of money,
Right.
But how many places did you find like that?
Only a handful. I think there's only like 4 or 5 apartment complexes in the area that are like that. The one I live at is the closest to where I work, like literally right next to where I work. My commute is maybe 20 minutes.
And if you had not, then you had to stay on the wait list for a year and a half.
So I had to live with my mother another year and a half, more than I thought I was going to have to, which put a strain on our relationship because a 40-something-year-old adult that has been independent for 20 years living with their mother is not easy. I don't have any children, so I couldn't apply for any of the assistance that they offer for families. And I don't have a husband or anybody like that to be able to help with the rent. So it's just me. So.
And I know you also looked for a roommate.
I did. I tried the roommate route. I put an ad on some of the theme park pages that are designed to find roommates. Unfortunately, most of them are in their 20s, and being in my 40s, living with somebody in their 20s wouldn't really work. I would have done it, but there was no bites. I did find one person that I went to visit her house, and it was really nice, and I was gonna do it, and then I looked up and her home was in foreclosure, and I was like, not doing that. So I was smart enough to be able to look and see that, but it was hard. It was hard for a while, and all my stuff, like everything I own, was in storage, and it was like $150 a month for me to pay for a storage unit to keep all my belongings. Thank goodness I found this place, or I would still be in living in Point Siena with an hour commute every day to work.
And are you still in the same place now that you had to be on the wait list for a year and a half?
And I'll be there until I buy a house,
You know
which
what?
will be a while.
A lot of people think, when people think of affordable housing and who has an issue with that, a lot of people think it's, people in their early 20s who are just starting out. You say that is not the case at all.
That is not the case. I'm not a poor person. I had a very good career before I moved down here, but it was extremely stressful, and I was ready to make a change in my career. What I went to school for wasn't what I was doing, and now my path is to do what I went to school for, but I have to start out somewhere. In this area, especially at certain businesses in this area, you cannot start out at the top. You have to start out, making a name for yourself and then apply as a person that already works with a company. And unfortunately, that's one of the bad things about having a lot of these college kids around that are doing these college programs at the different businesses in this area, is they get their foot in that way. And the people that already have careers that are moving down here, it's very difficult to find a job in that career because they have already trained these kids from the get-go, and this is where they're working for the remainder. So it's difficult for people that already had established careers to move down here and just jump into something that pays well. So you have to start out not making the greatest money to, in turn, you're living in a place that probably isn't where you saw yourself living in your 40s.
How long have you been in the apartment you're in now?
I will sign my third lease in December.
Okay. And can you talk a little bit about the program? You said a portion of your rent.
A portion of the rent that I pay, if I pay my rent on time every month, goes into, it's a program for people to buy their first home. So it goes into this, I'm not sure if it's an escrow or something like that, where a portion of your rent is put into this account, and you're able to, they help you with the down payment for your first home. So it's a federal program, so they're very strict about the rules for it. So you have to maintain your apartment. They check it every few months to make sure that you're not, I guess they're looking for people that are hoarders or something like that. They don't want people that are undesirable living there.
Now, was it difficult to find that program and the apartment that you're in?
It wasn't for me,
Okay.
because I kind of have a little know-how in looking for apartments, because I had just done that when I was in Michigan. So for me, it wasn't that difficult. But I think it's not something that's going to jump out at you. It's not something that they advertise. In fact, if you go to their website, it will say on the website that there's a 1.5-year wait list. And as soon as people see that, they're like, forget it, I'm going to live somewhere else. Especially the kids that are in their 20s, they're more apt to get a roommate, which is great, but I'm 40-something years old. A roommate situation I've tried, and down here it's just not going to work, because most of them are kids. They could be my children, and I don't really want to live with a 20-something-year-old. But I would do it if I had to. But I was lucky enough to find this place, and my mother was gracious enough to let me live with her while I did and save some money so I could afford. Even when I moved in, I still had to pay, I think I ended up paying $1,900 when I moved in.
Was it a struggle to come up with that?
No, it wasn't, because I had saved, because I wasn't paying rent. So for me, it wasn't, but for most people, it probably would be.
That's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money. Even if you save 10% of your pay, that's going to take, if somebody's making a couple $1,000s a month, that's going to take them a while to get there. And who has that now?
Right. You guys, I'm gonna be calling on people, but if ever you want to jump in, feel free to do that. We're just having a conversation. Ethan, tell me about your students. You mainly see affordable housing being an issue for your students, right?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Really, it's not a conversation I have necessarily with the parents, because they don't want to be necessarily open about their situations and whatnot. But the kids, I'm a source, an open ear for them. You know, they confide in me, and a lot of the times they'll come to me with these truths that are going on in their lives. So I've heard many situations from students. I've been a teacher for 3 years now, as far as, oh, we're living with these family members because we got kicked out of our home. We're living out of our car. We're living out of a hotel. Very, you know, a variety of situations. And, you know, it trickles into their everyday school work ethic, whether it be them sleeping in class, have other worries. They come to school hungry, sometimes not at all because, you know, whether parents are working and they couldn't get a ride to school that day, or they don't have their older sibling to walk them. So a variety of different situations that affects how they, you know, go ahead with school and where their attention is during the day.
And what grades do you teach?
So my first 2 years I taught 5th grade, and this past year I taught 3rd grade, and I'm going to teach 3rd grade again.
So these are young kids.
These are young
who are
kids,
dealing
yeah.
with this. And you said that you talk to the students more about it, but not necessarily their parents. And this is a question for the group. Do you guys feel that there is a stigma attached to looking for affordable housing? Frank said absolutely yes.
Absolutely. And I'll be real quick. That's because people still equate affordable housing with being poor. Yeah. A lot of people that haven't had to deal with the housing problems that we're dealing with in Central Florida right now, they hear affordable housing and their mind jumps out to this vision of dilapidated buildings and poorly maintained properties, and they're worried about how it affects their neighborhood and their property values. They don't know that affordable housing involves, you know, housing for teachers and police officers, and I think that's one of the biggest obstacles today.
And Tella, you said you've already been priced out of a house.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, I think my problem, and I think about solutions to this all the time because I want to stay in Orlando. I've been here almost my entire life.
Yeah.
And I think that, you know, when you have to try to change people's minds about affordable housing to make them, you know, realize what it really is. And it's not just a poor person problem or a middle class problem. If you're doing well, congratulations. But you're still overpaying rent for your condo in downtown. There is no good deal on a $1,600 studio, $1,400 studio. I don't care where in Orlando you're living. If you're overpaying at a premium of up to 20% from what we're seeing from various reports around the state, I don't care how wealthy you are, you're still getting ripped off. So, you know, it's, you know, as soon as, you know, you hear about this movement and trying to find affordable housing and solutions for affordable housing, I just think it's so important for the community.
And so you think you could eventually be priced out of Orlando altogether?
Absolutely.
You might just
we all got to retire sometimes. You know,
Yeah.
we're not getting any younger, and you've got to look yourself in the mirror and you've got to wonder, am I going to overpay 25, 30% for a house, just to stay in the community, or do I have to look for my other needs, my other areas of life? I'm not going to be able to work forever. You know, I mean, what is truly my budget, and how much am I really being willing to be taken advantage of to try to finish my life in the same community where I've always lived in? So it's not a new person problem. It's not a poor person problem.
Tell us about the house that you were looking for, that you were priced out of.
There haven't been any options. I've been all over the place.
Okay.
Me, I grew up in the Lockhart neighborhood, you know,
Okay.
just down the street from the station,
Yeah.
and on that border between Seminole County and Orange County. But you know, as far as Orlando, I'd rather live in any part of Orlando than have to leave the Central Florida area altogether. And it's all bad right now. It's all overpriced and it's all over-inventory.
I think one of the problems that we have in this area that's special to anywhere else in the United States is short-term rentals.
Yes.
People are buying condos and houses and renting them out for you know, like
Airbnb.
short-term rentals online or you know, even like some of the national sites that used to just be for hotels and resorts are now going into that market where they're doing short-term rentals. and it's really hurting the market because a lot of the theme park employees and, you know, people that work at we have a big grocery store chain that has a warehouse here. We have lots of furniture manufacturers in the area. They all have people that need to find affordable house. Lockheed Martin's in this area too. I mean, we need affordable housing in this area. We don't need all these, you know, $400 a night stay for 3 nights and go to the theme parks people. I mean, they can stay in the hotels that are already built. I think it's up to the builders to sit down and say, hey, maybe 20% of this building we can rent out to locals. Maybe if we get together with the cities in the area, we can say, hey, if you build this high-rise building, you need to also build one building or a percentage of buildings that are our affordable housing, or put money into a pot where we can build affordable housing, or put land aside where we can build affordable housing. I think one of the theme parks in the area is actually doing something like that, where they had sold a amount of property to build some affordable housing. I think it's not just up to you know, we can't do this alone. We have to have these people with the deep pockets to help out with this. I mean, we can have all the ideas all we want, but they can also sit on their wads of money and dive into coins like Scrooge McDuck while we're sitting waiting for something to open up in a house that, you know, last year cost $250,000 that somebody could easily afford, now costs $350,000, and somebody just swooped in and paid cash for it. I mean, in my entire life, I know some very wealthy people. I don't know anybody in my life that would be able to pay cash for a house. I mean, those are not normal people that are living in this area. Those people are coming from elsewhere.
Yeah.
To your point about the Airbnbs, I was down in the Four Corners area Friday.
That's where you live.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the entire neighborhood, I was talking to a property manager, the entire neighborhood, he said about 98% of the neighborhood was all vacation rentals.
Right.
So investors have bought these homes and they just rent them out week
and they're
after week after week.
10-bedroom, 9-bedroom,
They do.
6-bedroom homes. Those are not family homes.
They're not.
We knew before those were even built. When I saw that sign go up in Four Corners, I'm
Yep.
sure you saw it, 9 bedrooms.
Yep.
Why?
You know, they even had duplexes though.
Yeah.
They
Well,
had
that's
duplexes
the
that
ones
were
behind my apartment
Okay.
are the
Yeah.
duplex, and each and every one of them have a pool.
Yep.
Every one of them they have a pool in them, and there's parties every night. I mean,
You live in that area,
I
Nadia.
literally live in that area, and there's parties every night. And during COVID, that was the area known for the parties, the COVID parties, was right there in that area.
How long have you lived there?
I have lived there since October of 2020. Before that, I grew up in Kissimmee, and I've lived in Kissimmee my entire life since '85, and I have seen it. I literally have lived in an apartment complex and paid $1,400 and said to myself, am I literally paying $1,400 to live here? Because I know, like, this building was here when I came in '85. So that's why I was like, and that didn't even include the water, the cable, the trash, none of that. The rugs were so old, so moldy. The paint, you can tell that it was painted at least 20 times. Every time a new resident comes in,
Another
boom,
coat of paint.
another coat. The rugs, they were never, like, we had to steam clean it ourselves. So it's there. And now the apartment that I live in now, granted, it's nice. I'm paying for the area. I'm literally paying to live next to a water park.
And what, 5 years ago, that was
Nothing.
cow fields.
Nothing.
There were cows grazing out
Like,
there 5
literally.
years ago.
And that area, I'm literally paying for the name. Like, when I got the apartment in October, I had to move because where I was living just wasn't, it wasn't in a safe area. So I packed up my stuff for my sanity. And yes, I was like, okay, I'm gonna give up $1,000 and that's fine. But at that time, I was like 1460, I can do this. Then all of a sudden, here's my increase, but it's literally the only place that I can go because everyone else is like 1,800. And I'm not saying I don't, you know, I make decent money where I'm able to pay my rent, but there are times that I'm like, okay, how am I gonna pay? Like I have to figure out and move stuff around because the electric bill goes up. And I'm like, how is the electric bill in a 2-bedroom small apartment $250? Explain to me. Like it shouldn't even be that much. Like people don't take into consideration, like I'm almost paying close to $2,000 a month once my increase comes. And then I always hear these ads that I see, oh, you can own a home with paying the rent. And when you go, it's a whole other criteria that you're like, okay, does my job like qualify? Does my rent I've been paying my rent. Like that's one thing. I would make sure that I pay my rent on time because living in Osceola County, they don't care. They will just not. Like I'm seeing it right now in the complex that I live in because the pandemic is over and these people can't afford it.
And so sometimes you have to prioritize.
I do. And like right now, my issue is I have an out-of-state college student.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Rutgers.
Yes, and I have to, I don't want him to live on campus because it's overpriced. And then, but at the same time, everyone's like, oh, live off campus. I'm finding the same thing. Like how do college kids even a sublet? Like just let me live with a roommate or something. $1,000 for a room and you have to share a bathroom and the kitchen and this. I'm going through that. It's even going in New Jersey. Like how do college kids even pay $1,400 for a room?
Yeah. And you're married.
I am
right?
married.
Okay.
I am. And he, you know, we have our apartment. He has his house that he pays for too for his family and we're, you know, during this pandemic it was rough, but we made it. Thank God.
Yeah.
But it's rough. That increase right now, I'm like, I literally have to change some things around. Like, can I get rid of my car? Yeah, my rental. Like, I had to choose a 13-month lease.
How much did it go up?
So, my rent is $1,460 now, and they have it includes this package where it includes the cable, the Wi-Fi, the trash, the valet locker, but that never works. And so that's all included. That comes out to $1,460. Now, starting September 5th, I will pay $1,650.25. So now, before the increase, with my budget, I was able to live semi-comfortable. But now, with that increase, and then the increase with the tuition, I'm like, where's the and then I look, I'm still looking to see maybe I can move some, but even closer to where my family is still, I'm not gonna spend $1,800.
And then you have to pay to move.
Yeah, then I got to pay to move, the deposit.
Which isn't cheap.
I mean,
you had to do it quickly, didn't you, with your move?
Yeah.
Bathsheba?
Me, yes. It really wasn't cheap. The storage.
Yeah.
It is, exactly.
And having to pay it up for a couple of months, knowing my situation, paying for a U-Haul. You know, fortunately, I had a few people to help me move, but it was still a struggle. I had to have a handyman come break down my bed because I didn't know how to break down my bed. So, yeah, it was costly. And now I don't have a residence. I sleep in a hotel with my 3 kids. Oh. You know, and tonight's the last night. So hopefully the shelter will take us in the morning. Praying that they have room for us because I've tried to go to the shelter and they have no space.
Wow.
You know, the stress level is redonkulous. I'm sorry, guys, for my outrageous words, but it is like trying to sugarcoat it for the kids, but still try to figure out where I'm going next, what we're doing next. You know, it's difficult, you know.
Bathsheba, did this all start with the pandemic?
Yes.
Or were you having problems before?
You know, I was residing with my mother. We had a few little mishaps, and I ended up sleeping in my car. Getting this apartment that I lived in, and it being riddled with mold, so I suffered for a year until they put me out. I got money through the eviction diversion program, and they paid them in November of last year, caught me up completely, and they were still issued a second eviction under my name to get me out of the apartment because I was the troublemaker. But still, I was willing to pay them to reside in a molded, leaky, moist, damp, musty apartment. And the landlord was just intimidating, and he was a bully. He demanded his money, so I figured, okay, I tried to apply for our Florida, got approved for our Florida, but by the time they called me, the eviction had already went through. So even so, the landlord didn't want me there because I was a troublemaker, is what he referred to the new tenants as. He moved new tenants in to get me out because the apartment is, you said your building had been there since 1980. Well, I think I got you beat. My apartment's been there since 1969. And the pipes, the electricity, the electrical wiring is old. The what is that? What that thing called? What is that? The panel where the breaker box?
Yes, the breaker
was
box.
outdated, rusty, crusted, and they wouldn't replace it.
How did they even pass inspection?
Inspection, and they
how? Like
you
that's,
know, and I got the money through the government, and you would think that they would move me into a better environment for my children. Lo and behold, he refused to move me and still demanded the money.
That's crazy.
Bathsheba, you have 3 children?
Yes,
What are their
and one
ages?
on the way.
And one on the way.
Yes, so
What are their ages?
17, 13, and 3.
Okay.
And they're all in the hotel room with me right now.
And I'm assuming they were all in the car with you?
Yes.
You-
The 17-year-old wasn't, but the 13 and the 2-year-old was, it was really difficult, cramped space, and not really being able to get a good night's rest because my son, he's trying to, I guess, come to copes with not being in a bed, per se, because he's like, I want to go home. I want to go home.
Right.
And I'm trying to figure out how to tell him we don't have a home anymore. We have to stay here for a while, and my 13-year-old gets it, and my 17-year-old gets it too. She moves about. She has her friends, so she doesn't really, you know, she's not really affected. But the 13-year-old, you know, trying to really get in the shelter for her because she's not taken to being in the car very well. It's been a couple of weeks, you know. Representative Anas Escamani got us a room for a week to where I could ease my mind because it's been a real tragic week for me. I recently just lost my sister, and we buried her Saturday. So I'm just trying to just be, I guess, you know, and try not to be so overwhelmed with everything because it seems like one thing after another. The day that my sister died, my car broke down. I was supposed to go to the shelter that day, and I couldn't make it. So we
Couldn't get there.
We couldn't get there. So we stayed with the car. You know, I stayed with the car. I had my daughter's friend come and pick her and my son up, and they stayed there until I was able to get my car fixed, and then we commenced back to being in the car. We tried the shelter 2 days in a row. They were full. So I'm just trying to figure out what's the next move for us. You know, hopefully the shelter be able to take us in the morning, because checkout time is at 12 o'clock tomorrow.
And so you were in the car for how long? A matter of weeks or?
We were in the car since June 2nd. We have been in the car since June 2nd.
And when did you go to the hotel?
The 13th. The 13th. Anna Escamani got us the room for the week, you know, and I'm grateful and thankful for that. You know, it was hard. It's going to be hard. It's a struggle, but I don't have nowhere else to go.
For some people, a shelter is the last resort, but you're saying that they didn't even have room for you. There were so many people.
There were so many people, and I was in line at 6:30 in the morning, and there were people already lined up waiting to get into the shelter before me, and I'm like, I thought that was fairly early, you know? But, because, you know, the shelter is not in a really good environment. I couldn't really park my car up. I didn't feel comfortable parking my car up and sleeping out there. So, you know, I stayed in front of my daughter's friend's house, and that morning we woke up and we drove over there. They stayed sleeping in the car. I parked up about 6:30, got out my car because I was still kind of groggy about 7:11, and there were people lined up. There were people already lined up. And I thought I had a place because I spoke to a couple of people beforehand, but they just had so much need. There was so much need, and I guess I wasn't present, so they gave away my spot. So that's understandable. You know, I tried to stay into the apartment as long as I possibly could because I didn't want to burden anybody. You know, the eviction was served to me on June 1st. So I stayed into the apartment until then. And then, you know, that's when we commenced to moving. You know, I started bit by bit moving the things out, but majority of the stuff I didn't really take because it was covered in mold, you know, and I just took my son's toys and my clothes, the bed, and left everything else.
And are you able to work right now? You have a small child.
It's last year it was a process, but right before the pandemic hit, I said, okay, I'm ready to go back to work. I'm ready to get my own money. I need to get my feet back in the water, you know. So I started to go to Career Source Center. You know, they help single mothers, you know, give us childcare and help us get back into the work field. And I was really excited. So I had obtained a little data entry job. I thought I was going to be okay. And lo and behold, come April, everything's getting shut down, you know, and no more work for me, you know, and I was just like starting my first week out of my training. So I was really excited to actually make money. Shoot, COVID came and swept all my little hopes and dreams away. So everything closed. Childcare closed. The office that I was working for closed, and I've been living off of TANF and food stamps this past year. So I really couldn't afford to pay my rent on time. I didn't have any money to pay my rent, you know, not enough anyway, because that's what I was surviving off of, TANF and food stamps. So affordable housing for me would mean it's a lifesaver for me, you know, because that way, you know, even if when I do find employment, I'll be able to afford my house or afford an apartment for me and my family, and not have to worry about moving things around and, you know, budgeting things to where I have to make sure the lights stay on, because kids don't understand the lights get turned off.
They don't.
You know, Mom, what's going on? You know, they barely even understand why the Wi-Fi is not working. The Wi-Fi goes out for 5 minutes when the rain comes, and Mom, what's wrong? They're hysterically losing their mind because they don't have Wi-Fi. So it's really hard to just explain to a child, listen, the lights are going to be off for a couple of days, you know, so bear with Mommy, you know, but it's the struggle. You know, I've been struggling all my life. You know, watch my mother struggle here in Florida. We lived in affordable housing growing up, you know, so it was just like, I tried to even go back to where we lived. They were full to capacity. And I'm like, oh, wow, what am I going to do next? Where am I going to go? It's too frustrating. And adulting is a hard thing.
Yes, it is.
I want to be back in my adolescent stage. Thanks.
You guys, I want to talk, Brian, I'm going to get to you in just a minute to tell your story. But since you hit on this, talk to me about the stress that it is having to prioritize things every month. Now, you said the rent is always first.
Rent is always first.
And then from there, you kind of prioritize.
Yeah, I'm to the point, like, rent is first, then my light. Couldn't care less if the cell phone gets cut off or not. Like, that's to the point. My car, I've been trying to get rid of that car, so I'm like, you know.
Is it stressful?
It is very stressful. It is very, very stressful because I'm a mom. And I want what's best for him and for my kids, so I'm going to do whatever. If that means eating ramen for the rest of my life, then I've done it. Then yeah, it's hard. It is very, very hard, and it's stressful, and it's, you know, it causes unnecessary anxiety.
What? My anxiety
Yes.
level is up to here.
Unnecessary.
Having panic attacks.
Yep.
Like no other, to where I have to like literally tell my kids, let me get a moment, because mommy's on the inside, I'm screaming, you know, because I'm trying to figure things out. My mind is racing on my next move and how we're going to eat, you know, because Tandem only takes me but so far.
Exactly.
You know,
and I've been on that. Trust me.
And they give you
I've been
just
on
enough
that.
to survive, you know, and that week right before they, I would say, replenish, it's hard. We're eating ramen noodles.
Yep.
You know, and my kids, I don't want no more ramen noodles, Mommy. Can we have some McDonald's? No, Mommy can't afford McDonald's today. Now, you know, maybe when that child tax credit hit, we could splurge a little bit on some McDonald's, but that is a treat. You know, that is a luxury. My kids don't get to eat out. We eat what food stamps provide, and now that it's going to be even harder for me, we're eating microwavable meals. I can't cook real fresh food for my kids. You know, when we were in our apartment, I cooked for my kids because that's how we survived. But now it's another stress level. How am I going to feed them? It's always Michelina meals or banquet meals or, you know, little noodles, everything in the microwave, which is not healthy for us, you know, and I really want my kids to have a roof to where they can go in and close the door and I want to make this for dinner, you know, and we sit down at a table and have a family meal on a Sunday, you know. I would love to be able to do that with my kids, you know, instead of sitting in the car, even though we're all eating together still, and I should cherish these moments, you know, but it would be nice to sit at a table.
There's such a discord between the haves and the have-nots in this area, and I think it's like that everywhere. I mean, I live in Windermere, which is known for having some pretty big homes. I do not live in a big home. I live in income restricted housing.
Oh, you live in Windermere?
I have the Windermere address, so that kind of means. But you drive. I went to the farmers market last week, and I'm driving through and I'm seeing these giant houses, and I'm just thinking to myself, if they only knew what it was like to go to a food shelter and say, I'm sorry, we can't help you because we have people that are more in need than you are. It happens, and I think it's like I said earlier. I think it's up to these big companies in the area to put their heads together and figure something out, because it's their employees that are hurting. I grew up in Vermont, and Ben and Jerry's ice cream always had a rule that the the CEOs, the executives of the company could not make more than a percentage of the lowest paid person for the company. Like there was like the gap could only be so much. Like when I see people from the theme parks buying $12 million homes, and I'm thinking to myself, God, it would be great if I could buy a $120,000 home. But wait, if I bought the $120,000 home, the HOA fee is $500 a month. Like, I don't understand how your HOA fee could be more than your mortgage payment. And it's because of the short-term rentals. That is what's killing this area. Is when I lived in Michigan, we didn't have, I never even knew what a HOA was up there. I mean, I'm sure they have them, but you weren't paying $500 a month to live
I agree.
someplace.
I agree.
And they can do anything with that money, you know.
Well, look at Point Sienna's HOAs right now.
Yeah.
Robin, has it, the whole process since you moved back here, has it been stressful?
Yes, it's been stressful. I mean, obviously living with my mother and the whole move. I did it by myself. I rented a 16-foot truck. I towed my car with my dog and my cat, and I did this all by myself. There was nobody helping me, nobody else driving. It was just me. My mother goes, I don't know if you're crazy or brave. And I'm like, you know what? I did what I had to do. Just like we are all doing what we have to do to survive. And stress, I try not to let it stress me out. But it does. I mean, you get to that end of the month and you're thinking, okay, can I go to Aldi and get groceries, or am I going to be able to pay my rent?
Yep.
I mean, I don't go to Publix because it's too expensive. I have to shop at Aldi.
And they got the best fruit.
Yeah.
Good deli meat.
And Ryan,
Yeah.
I know
Yes,
you
I love their
had,
subs.
like Nadia, I know you had a big increase that's coming up.
Yeah, I haven't re-signed yet, but they gave me the early offer because the lease is not actually up yet. But the cheapest increase that they offered was an 11th month for a 17% increase, which is around like $240 a month or something like that. Which really sucked for me because I've been working at this new job since last April, so over a year, and we're just getting our yearly increase, which happened to be like $1.50 an hour. It comes out to about $240 a month.
Oh, really?
Wow.
So my entire yearly increase that I worked through the entire pandemic, being an essential worker, I work in a warehouse loading those grocery store trucks that brought all the food to everybody that they needed during the pandemic, because all the restaurants were either closed or takeout only until that changed. But yeah, it basically ate my entire raise. Which is, you know, it's great that I did get a raise that basically covers all that, but other things go up as well. You know, cars are going up, gas is going up, everything else is going up. So I'm just going to have to eat that cost. But luckily I did get a raise that's going to cover that. But, you know, what about next year? And that's the maximum raise too. That was the maximum raise for, you know, doing a good job and all that. So there are people at my work that maybe got 50 cents or $1 an hour raise that hopefully their rent didn't go up as much as it did mine.
And you have a son, and I know you were concerned about having to switch schools.
Yeah, I would just switch schools. So I do live in a pretty nice area. I live in Longwood, which is not downtown. So I thought we were protected from these Orlando area rent increases, but the apartment complex basically said we're in the greater Orlando area, so they're
That's the
basing
surrounding area.
they're basing their rent increase off of the Orlando average rent increase, which is 17%. And like I said, that was the best offer. If I just went ahead and renewed a 12-month lease, which is the lease that I signed last year, it would be like a $500 a month increase, which is like 33%, 34%.
Whoa.
From 1441 to like 1660 is the best offer. If I do a 12-month lease, it's like $500 more a month. It's almost $2,000 a month for the 2-bedroom, which is insane. I even asked the apartment complex when I called them up, when I got the lease renewal offer, I said, I know this place has been around since the 80s, the early 80s. Have you ever, in your like 40 years of increasing rents on people, have you ever offered the best offer, 17%? I mean, to me, that's absolutely insane. 17% in 1 year for the best offer, and if you just do the 12-month, it's 33%. No one gets a 33% raise.
Right.
You know what I'm
Not in
saying? Like,
Yes, I do.
you know, even if you have
10 cents raise.
yeah, and even if you have two people, a husband and a wife,
Yeah.
You need to
The
make
raises
more.
still won't be
it's
that
still way more.
You need to
and
make at least
I think, like,
$26 an hour,
Yeah, it's-
$26 to $30 an hour to literally live here in Central Florida. I do math
live
all day. I'm
comfortably.
like,
To live
I do math
comfortably.
all day. Yeah,
I
to
mean,
live
you could-
comfortable.
if you made $24 an hour, you could afford all your bills. But
And that's
I mean,
pushing
that's
it.
like
and that's
nothing.
pushing it
Yeah, that's
because
like
$24
nothing.
an hour, you can't live in Four Corners now.
No.
Nope, you can't. And that's a struggle.
Yeah. Ryan, do you also think that there's a stigma attached to needing, wanting affordable housing?
Oh yeah, of course. I think like someone else mentioned here, when you hear the term affordable housing, you think like poor or rundown housing, things like that. I just moved back from California right before the pandemic started. I lived out there from 2017 to November 2019, and you see a lot of homeless people out there because there is no affordable housing, or like she said, it's so it's so in need that there's not enough affordable housing
Not
for
enough
everyone.
of it.
There's definitely not enough room in the shelters. There is no other option than to just build tents in the street. Because there's
see
no
that all
affordable
over.
housing. There's definitely no room in the shelters. And so they just move them from place to place, to be honest. The big encampments right now are in like Venice Beach and things like that. So it's like, I think someone else said here, it's not just a poor person problem. It's everybody's
It's
problem.
an everyman
Exactly.
problem.
And it's not just a renter's problem. A lot of people think, oh, well, you should buy a house, or you should have bought a house earlier, this and that. It's a housing problem too. A lot of
Yeah.
Florida residents that
Can't
were
afford
looking
to
to buy
buy
a
a
house, husband, wife, family, normal Florida residents,
People are swooping in and paying cash.
they're getting beat out by people that are swooping in from other states paying cash.
More countries.
We've reported on that. Nadine has done
Yeah, and
some of those stories.
And that's great that we have people moving here. We've always had people move to Central Florida. It's a great place. I love it here. But when too many people move here too fast, and especially from very expensive states like where I lived in LA for 2 years, I've seen it. These people have multi-million-dollar homes, or at least middle-class people have $1 million home. My condo in LA that I rented was a one-bedroom. It's $2,500 a month. It's like a $500,000 condo if you bought it. These people are moving. They could afford a one-bedroom condo there, and they're buying whole houses, sight unseen, never even seen the house in
Exactly.
person, $30,000-$40,000 over the asking price in cash. Like, how do you compete with that? Even if you're a normal Florida family. If
I'm
you're
looking at Nadine because she has reported on this exact same thing. that
and
you
that's what I'm saying.
described.
I've read some of your guys' articles.
Yeah.
That's actually what my apartment complex used, was one of the Orlando average rent increases 17%. So they looked that up and they said, well, the average is 17%. So that's
So
what
they
they
based it
went
off
off of. But it's just, it's unrealistic, and maybe some people can make do this year, and like she said, move some things around.
Yep.
If they do this too quickly, too many years in a row, there are going to be a lot of people that are going to be standing in line at the shelter too. That's what I'm saying.
And these aren't
They're
people
building-
that have lived in poverty ever. Like
Yeah.
I had to ask. I'm making $200 a week right now because I'm on disability because I had surgery on my elbow, and I had to ask for the first time in my life. I had to go to GoFundMe and ask for money because I couldn't pay my bills on $200 a week. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, I had a little bit of savings, but of course I used that up. And there's a lot of programs out there, but it's not like they reach out and touch you. You have to dig and find
you
them.
have to dig and find
Which
them.
takes
Just like
time.
when you go to college, you have to dig for the scholarships.
Yes.
And thank God I posted on a few Facebook groups, and they were like, "Oh, you can do this and do that, and sign up for this and that." You know,
Yeah.
we're all helping each other to get through this. But thank goodness for that, or I probably would have been sleeping in my car too.
Yeah, and even then, I've applied for Catholic charities
Yep.
and Christian services.
There's
and,
always an excuse.
Yep, there's always an
there-
excuse
It's,
with-
it's a long line.
Yep.
It's a waiting line.
list.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, well, you have no income, so we can't help you. But I need the help.
And if you're in Osceola County, there's hardly no help. Hardly. Because if you would call, I've been in this situation where I've had to ask for help and gone to the shelter, to the food banks, or I needed help paying my rent one time. And this was out like 5 years ago. You call 211 and then they tell you, okay, call Catholic Charities. I call, where do you live? I'm sorry, we don't help Osceola County. And that's a big issue in Osceola County, is there's hardly no help. Everything's for Orange County, Orange County, Orange County. Whereas Osceola County, if you go down John Young Parkway and 192, it is horrible. It's horrible. There's so many homeless people out there. The strip of 192, all these hotels, like literally three lights down from me, there's hotels where everybody's they're living there, or just recently there was a hotel that they shut the power off and the water and people still living there. Like, it's crazy.
Well, Four Corners is an area that's exploding.
Yes.
When I first moved here 6 years ago, it was all cows. I mean, there was just cows out there, cows. Now I drive by, it's luxury apartments.
Luxury.
And
less
then
vacation,
timeshares,
more
so
affordable housing. That's what they need to do.
So we need less stainless steel kitchens, less granite countertops.
I don't even have that.
Less
I don't
wood
even have that.
floors. We need linoleum and regular just white appliances and a
To
rug.
make it more affordable.
Yes.
And this is what we need. We don't need luxury. We need affordability, and just to get people in these places and
Off the streets.
I
because
can't
it's
do
bad.
this. You can't do this.
Yeah.
Who can do this? I mean,
So
I think
basically
it's up to the the theme parks and the big companies in this area to decide, what are we going to do?
This is
How
a
are we going to
priority.
help our employees be able to do this? I do work for a company that has a lot of resources, but most of those resources point to public programs. Public programs don't normally help somebody like me. So I'll apply for it and they'll be like, you don't qualify.
Exactly.
Like, I
Yeah.
applied for food stamps at the beginning of the pandemic. I had no income coming in. This was before we were even getting unemployment. I was denied when I put 0 down for money made.
Yep. I believe it.
Robin, you've mentioned a couple of times that it's up to the larger employers to look out for their employees to
Right.
make sure that there is affordable housing. What other solutions?
I think it's not just up to the employers, but it's really got to be a collective effort. Like the employers, the politicians,
These
mainly politicians
multi-millionaire
too.
companies,
Yeah.
they need to invest back into the community.
They do.
But
basically-
because you want people to come and work for your company, right? How are they going to work for your company if they have nowhere to live? They have
If they're living in a hotel
If
or
they're
their
living in
car.
a hotel and they have to pay for that, or their car, they have to constantly pay for gas. And how do you expect them to make it to work if you're not putting back into the community? Put it back into the community. When you build
Yeah.
a new company, build an affordable housing for a underprivileged neighborhood. Help the little man up. You guys got all this money. Use it in a positive way.
I also think that the politicians and our city officials need to step up their game and literally go out there and see what's going on, because they're living comfortable. They're fine.
Yeah.
They're not. And
They got their
Osceola
health
County
insurance
is
paid
just a
for.
mess.
Yeah, they
and
don't
I've
worry about
lived.
their lights getting turned
I've
off at
lived
night.
in Osceola County since 1985. I went to elementary school, middle school, high school. I went to college here, and I have seen it. I have seen the way Osceola County has. I used to love saying, I'm from Kissimmee. I'm from Kissimmee.
Now it's
Literally, No.
Not anymore.
Not
I
anymore.
literally moved to Four Corners thinking that it was going to be better. And what do I see? The same thing I see, except I'm paying higher rent for the same thing that's going on in Kissimmee.
We hear a lot of talk about affordable housing, but do you guys feel like it is a real priority?
It should
It
be.
should be. It really should be.
People,
It's not
yeah.
a priority.
It
It's
isn't.
not. No
But it
one's
should
making it a
be.
priority.
Yeah.
The reason why they really do need to get on it, like they say it should be, it's if they think that there's a lot of homeless people out there right now, we have a lot out there right now, it can get so much worse. I mean, if you go to places like California and see some of these areas that, I mean, even in Hollywood, which is a very, usually, I mean, it's supposed to be a nice area, but
Yeah.
there's just tents everywhere. It's just going to get a lot worse. It can get a lot worse. And by affordable housing, we don't mean like build someone a $50,000, 5-bedroom house or something like that. But like they said, we don't need all $400,000 and $500,000 houses. Like we need regular houses for regular people with, everyday jobs. I seen a couple people I know actually. The only people that were recently able to buy housing were new houses because they weren't getting bid on so much. It was just like a new construction house. But even the new construction house was a $400,000 house. No one's building $200,000, $250,000 smaller houses, or like they said, anything with more regular features. Everything is high end, everything is luxury. All the condos in Orlando, they're not building any regular things.
Frank,
It's-
were you looking? You were looking for houses for a while. Did you see the same thing?
Yeah, and I was hoping that you wouldn't call me because I'm a policy guy. I've been following Orlando policy for a long time, and I'm seeing a perfect intersection of all the different challenges we're seeing with affordable housing. And the truth is that developers and the real estate industry are some of the most powerful people in Central Florida. So they have a lot of influence over where the direction of housing goes. And you've seen task force done by various counties in the Tri-County area for affordable housing. And even if they hit all of their projections for affordable housing, even if they produce the number of units they say they're going to produce, it's still not even going to be close to 10% of what the region needs. And I think that when you really, look at the picture of it all together, the only way I could see something really happening is if either the profit margin of the real estate industry was affected or the profit margins of the job creators, the tourism industries that aren't paying their employees enough gets affected. If nothing happens, if it's sort of like an economic game of chicken. If the rent doesn't come down or if the pay doesn't come up, then you're going to start seeing people leave these jobs behind, and you're going to see slowly Orlando's economic engine sort of get gunked up. And one of the two sides are going to have to flinch, and lawmakers on all sides, from the municipal levels all the way up to the halls of Congress, are going to have to really, really make some serious attempts to fix this.
Just to touch on what he was saying about, the real estate people and things like that having a bunch of power around here. Perfect example was in the same county as I live in, where I got a 17% rent increase was the best offer, 34% for a 12-month, basically a big increase. I know someone that didn't get any increase at all, and one of the reasons is because they have a single owner, a condo owner. It's like one or two. They might own
Privately
one,
owned.
two,
Yeah.
3,
Those are
5
hard to
units
find.
max,
Yeah, those are
type
really
thing.
hard to find. That's
The complex I live in, where my
That's a thing.
townhome is at, is, I'm not going to say the name, but it's a large
corporate.
corporation. They own multiple apartment complexes in lots of states, probably. I know of at least 4 that they own just in Central Florida. So basically what I'm saying is they could afford to, if I say no, they'll find another person. And if they don't,
That-
within a month, they can afford 1 unit hit.
Yep.
Because they have
Yeah.
thousands of them.
It should be
The
protection
one,
against
the homeowners that are renting their homes out and only own a few, they were hit by COVID. They didn't get any rent from people. I understand where they're coming from. They can't afford to increase the rents because if the person says no to it, they can't afford another month without the mortgage
Right.
payment or another 3 months, 6 months. Whereas my apartment complex or townhouse, when they don't rent the place out, they can either find another person quickly, or if they don't, they're okay with that.
Yep.
Because they own so many. So to touch on what he said, he's right. You know, the larger real estate interests, they hold a lot of sway. So.
Excellent. You guys, thank you so much. It is 8:15, so I promised we were not going to keep you all night. This has been so valuable to hear from all of you. Thank you so much for sharing your stories with us. We really appreciate it. We have our work cut out for us, trying to come up with some solutions to this problem, because it is a very, very big problem.
It is.
And you know, when people think about affordable housing, they do think, you know, poor people, but people are working every day, working hard, and still struggling. Yeah. So I thank you guys so much for sharing your stories. We really appreciate it.
Hey, thanks, man.
Yeah, please.
Just ask the panel if they have any final thoughts for
Solutions?
Yeah, like a round robin solution. Yeah, it's kind of like, because, you know, I mean, there was a lot of conversation going on, and everyone didn't get to say everything they wanted to say. So you can start and just ask them that question.
Maybe like one line or two.
Solutions, Nadia.
Oh, me first. I just want to see people, I just want to see like some action. And I want to see the rent go down, but that's never going to happen. But I just want some kind of solution where Central Florida can come together and help people. And no matter how much somebody makes, people are struggling. You can make $50,000 a year and you still are struggling to pay your rent. Like something needs to happen, because $50,000 10 years ago, that was perfect. That was, hey, yeah, I'm making great money. $50,000 a year right now, my son's college tuition costs more than that. So people are struggling. People are struggling, and we need help.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ryan, solutions.
One of the solutions I would definitely say is to build more affordable housing. And by affordable housing, I don't mean like, you know, low income or anything like that, just that, but also just build some regular houses like some of the people touched on here. You know, not everyone needs a $400,000 or $500,000 house with granite everywhere, things like that. Some of us need a regular house that's more in the $200,000, $250,000 range, which is almost impossible to find. And again, I know things are going to go up in price over time. That's what just happens, is inflation. But I think we've all seen the past year, some things have gone up way faster than others. Cars and houses are definitely one of them or two of them. And it's not sustainable. We're going to see a lot of homeless people if we don't see action, like a lot more homeless people.
Frank, solutions.
I think everyone should take maybe an hour or two out of their afternoons, learn the names of all their elected lawmakers on the city, state, and federal levels. Call them, tell them, hey, I'm hurting, or hey, this rent is unfair, my wages are too low. Put the phone down, and then just let all of your loved ones know, all of your friends know, let everyone know that right now the quality of life in your community isn't what it should be, and just keep making noise, and just hope that if you work hard enough, the change will eventually show itself. It's going to be a tough, long road, but there eventually will be a solution.
Perfect. Bathsheba.
One that pertains to me, really. A second chance for people who have gotten inquired evictions this year, because I've gotten 2 throughout the pandemic from the same company. And unfortunately, that's a real big blemish on my record. So a second chance where I could get my evictions expunged to where my new renter, future renter, wouldn't be able to see that. That would be a great solution for a lot of people throughout this pandemic. I know a lot of people would love to get their evictions erased. If it happened between April up until now, I feel like it would only be right, because this was
During
a
the
struggle.
pandemic.
Through anything that happened between April of last year up until now, I feel like everyone in that particular instance needs a second chance, because where am I going to go now? You know, I have to rely on these programs to get me in, because I can't go to a regular apartment complex on my own. I've been denied because they see the 2 evictions that occurred back to back, and they're not really considering, hey, let me ask why. How come you've had 2 evictions within the past 3 months? They don't really care to ask. They just deny and gladly keep my money in their pockets. So I believe everyone throughout the eviction should get a second chance to where we can expunge that off our records.
Ethan.
Talking long term, yeah, definitely got to get into the local government, force them, like pressure them to come into the communities to see what's really going on from, just that point of view, that perspective, right in there, hear from the voices of the people of what they need. And again, immediately, yeah, with what everybody said, just affordable housing, looking at everybody's situations as far as, if it's like, you said like an income standard, if, you've been affected by the pandemic, just really trying to narrow who can live here based on, just because everybody's struggling in some point of matter that you can narrow it down to get these people in these homes and just get people off the street. If you're talking long-term solutions, you got to get in to the schools too. Coming out of high school, I didn't know anything about the housing market. Coming out of college, I don't know anything about the housing market. I've learned a lot today from this panel, listening to what everybody said. I still feel there's a lot more that I can learn. Get programs into the schools, have those students take those programs so when they come into the workforce, they're not hit over the head when, something like a pandemic happens and they're able to bounce back or maybe they already had a plan set. Because I know for a fact myself and many people I know still are not that knowledgeable on everything that's going on with affordable housing. We're just, playing victim and, moving how we can. So definitely programs, get in there and offer them to the people and let them know these programs are here for you. And
make it easier. Make it easier for us to access them.
Exactly.
Make it a priority to where like a single mother like me, I apply for DCF, TAND of cash assistance, but also ask me if I'm struggling with housing. Ask me what's my current living situation and do I feel safe or do I have a problem paying my rent? DCF has a big database and it touches a lot of people. I think that will be one of the main sources that they can go through, DCF. Find out how these kids are. Are they eating enough? Are they bathing enough? Even though it still touches on housing. All this stuff, kids need to be in a house, be stable. These streets are not made for these kids. So if we do that, I think that would definitely benefit a lot of families. Because that way you'll know this person and this person and this family is having these issues,
Thank you. And Robin, I believe I gave you the first word and you're going to have the last word. Close it out for us.
I just think it's up to the community as a whole. I think the businesses around here as well as the politicians need to get together to figure this out because there's a problem and not one entity is going to be able to fix it. They know there's a problem. I don't know how they wouldn't know there's a problem. I mean, you could just drive up a 192 every day and you see all these hotels that used to be beautiful hotels probably 20 years ago. This was the spot. What happened? I mean, what happened? Why is this happening? I mean, the orange groves are out. We've got Orange County. Are there actually any orange groves in Orange County? No, it's all luxury condominiums. It's all luxury apartments. Why? If you look around, the people that live here don't need luxury. We need affordability. Affordability doesn't mean tenement buildings. Affordability means normal people that work at the theme parks, that work at the warehouses around here that we have a ton of, need a place to live. I mean, we can't afford, $1,600, $1,800 rent. A 1-bedroom apartment here, the lowest I have found is $1,100. A 1-bedroom apartment, $1,100. I've seen studios going for $1,000.
Yep.
If you want a 2-bedroom apartment, you're going to pay $1,400.
Yeah.
That, and she can't live in a 2-bedroom apartment. She will. She'll live in a studio apartment, but she still can't afford $1,000. I mean, that's ridiculous. But you know what? It's got stainless steel appliances and granite countertops and
It's really nice.
molding, and
but I
we
can't
don't need
afford to
that.
live there.
we don't need that. Give me a good Black & Decker stove with a black front on it that doesn't have rust. I'm good.
That part.
I don't need
And all the eyes on
granite.
the stove work and the oven
No.
works. That's it. That's all I'm asking for. Running water.
Yep.
That's it.
So it's all about affordability, and it's not about tenement buildings. It's about normal people like the people here that just need a place to live. And you can't drive down any of the roads around here with blinders on. I mean, these people that are making buku bucks, that are living in these giant houses that they have a winter home and a summer home and a beach home and whatever. Like, I just want a 1-bedroom apartment that I can afford, that I don't have to like squeeze every month to make.
And
ends
prioritize
meet.
every month.
Why couldn't it be
right.
limitations on how many houses we own?
So I don't know.
I'm just saying, because it's true. People own summer homes. People own vacation homes. People have timeshares. Like, I understand, you want to live in different area codes, but why take up space that you're not going to use year round?
Yeah.
Someone else could be living in that house. A family could be residing there, but okay,
Yeah.
I guess. You have the money, spend it the way you want to spend it.
You guys, thank you so much for being here. We really, really appreciate it. Again, we all have our work cut out for us, but thank you for sharing your stories. Be sure to subscribe to Solutionaries to see all our latest videos right here on YouTube.